Today we're going to be looking at the code for an application I built for GPT-powered programming tutor for Python. You simply start by pasting your API key, OpenAI API key. You can select the model, GPT 3.5 Turbo or GPT-4. You can select the programming language, Python, JavaScript, Rust, Go, or HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Let's just start with Python, and you can select your levels. And I have some interesting links here. You can download the code, watch this very video, actually, and you can join the Discord to talk with us. I'm just going to ask, give me some sample code for functions, and we are at the beginner level. And a spinner is initiated. We're just waiting for the response. And after that, we get a response back, basic function, functions with return value, recursive functions. This is very good for learning programming on your own. But if we were to select advanced and ask the same question, then we get a much more complex answer, such as the lambda functions and decorators, generators. This is really great. You can pace yourself. You can also work with JavaScript. Again, let's go with that. Again, we're doing advanced. So it's talking about a function in JavaScript that takes in multiple parameters. Here we go. This is written in Markdown, so you can actually copy this and use it for your projects. You can also use this with Rust and Go as well. I am making this application live through streamlit. This is the URL. I'll put the link in the description. Feel free to use it and teach yourself some programming and brush up on your skills. I think this would be a great, useful tool. Now let's review the code for how I built this application. But before I do that, I just want to mention that I am starting regularly occurring workshops for my Patreon support. First of many is on April 5th, 12 noon on Pacific Standard Time. You can check out the link. I'll also put the link in the description as well. Let's jump right into the code. So I have two different versions for this app. One is actually with streaming responses that work in the terminal, and one which utilizes the Streamlit user interface, as you just have seen. I will be making both of these files available for my Patreon supporters. The link will be in the description. To begin with, we are importing OpenAI and Streamlit. You need to have these pip installed, and you need to have your OpenAI API key defined, either in the code or in your user environment variables. Then we are creating a class for programming tutor. We call it programming tutor. This will input, take in an API key, a model name for GPT 3.5 Turbo or GPT-4, a language for Python, JavaScript, Go, such and so, and a user level, beginner, intermediate, and advanced, and we are defining them here along with the API key. Then we have a generate response method, which takes in a user input. And we have a system prompt, but I'm also actually inputting the system prompt just before the user input too, because I don't think the history is working very well currently. So I'm going to just leave this code like this, but I'm going to try to make some improvements on it. Currently, it doesn't support chat history, and it doesn't support streaming responses, but I'm going to work on that. I guess my mind was a bit foggy today, and for some reason couldn't figure that out. Anyway, the system prompt is you're a programming tutor specializing in whatever the language is. You are here to help whatever level the user is. Be helpful, explain things in a way that a user can understand. If the user asks for another language, then say it can only help with, it will only provide help with the chosen language, and it prompts you to change it in the sidebar. Then we get a response from OpenAI's chat completions, just like this. Our messages is actually coming from the session state chat history, because this is one way to keep things that you want to persist in Streamlit, to use the session state. Otherwise, every action you make on the page actually reruns the script from beginning and reinitializes all your values. Our assistant reply is simply the response. Then we append that to our session state, and then we return the assistant's reply. We are starting by setting the language to Python, and we are setting the page title for programming tutor, and we are starting the sidebar inputs. Sidebar header is the settings, and then our API key is going to be a text input of type password, and then we just say a placeholder OpenAI API key here. Then if the OpenAI API key is not in the session.state, we're initializing it to none. And if there is an API key which is entered into the text input box for API key, then we are assigning that API key to our session state key, OpenAI API key, right here. Then the next one is a radio selection box for GPT 3.5 Turbo and GPT-4. And the next one is a select box, which is a drop-down menu for these options, Python, JavaScript, Rust, Go, and HTML, CSS, JavaScript. And we are setting the title to be programming tutor for whatever the language has been selected. and the level is determined here from beginner, intermediate to advanced. And here I am defining some of the links that I placed on the page along with the Discord. Then we say that tutor is programming tutor. I think we don't use this. We can actually just simply comment this out. Then we ask user input to be a text input, enter a question. Okay, and then we say submit button is the submit button. The next part is the count.txt. This is just a file I put in so that every time the button is clicked, it actually updates that count.txt file so that we can display this app has been used how many times. This is just my way of keeping track of usage and with Streamlit, because there's no easy way to do that. And then we say if submit button, if the button has been clicked, then we check that we make sure that there is actually user input in the box, such as right here, that this is filled. And then we check if the API key is provided. If not, we prompt the user to put in their API key. We stop it for the time being from Streamlit from running. Then we update our count.txt by opening it and actually appending one to it because our submit button had been clicked. Then with the spinner, actually, see, this is where we're using it. We can uncomment this because we are assigning our class to a tutor. That's fine. And with the spinner waiting for a response, we are getting the response using our class. And then with markdown, with some styling, we are actually writing the user input. And then after we have received the assistance reply, we are just writing it on a page. That's it. And the next file, I'll just quickly browse it, is just the same thing, but it just works in the terminal. Like I said, I will make both of these available for Patreon supporters. And let's take a look at the demo again. Let's just start with Rust because I don't really know much about Rust. I'm saying tell me about Rust with some code examples. Let's just submit and see what it responds with. Because we have selected the beginner level, we can hopefully rely on GPT to give us responses which we can hopefully understand and build on top of. It says Rust is a modern systems programming language that provides high level of performance and low-level control. One of the key features of Rust is the ability to guarantee memory safety. So it explains what it does, basic syntax. It explains how the basic syntax work, the variables, functions. And then maybe you can say, tell me more about variables, for example. Asking it to tell us more about the variables. And here it will explain variables in the Rust. As you can see, Rust is a bit different. But I hope you'll find this useful. Please use it and let me know in the comments how you like it. Share it with the world. Like I said, I'll make the code available for Patreon supporters. Don't forget about the workshop if you're interested in that. And join us in Discord if you like to chat about large language model applications. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one.